Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing in front of you because I think it's time for an unsafe conversation. Some of you might know the situation when your partner is approaching you unexpectedly and says, "I guess we need to talk." And we know what comes afterwards will not be easy. So nobody really loves or to have like an unsafe conversation. I mean, are there people here in the room who love to have like a difficult, unsafe conversation? Raise your hands. Oh, well, there was one over there out of 500. Yeah, we don't like it because it triggers all our fears. We don't want to hurt somebody. We fear that we get hurt as well. So the problem is that instead of having a difficult conversation, we choose to better be nice, right? Nice. Be nice to each other. But there's something going on in the world right now that we can't out-nice. That's the difficult thing here. We can't out-nice what's going on when we look at a world that reaches at so many fronts critical thresholds. What I would like to call like we've entered the edge of the liminal. It's not just like the melting poles. It's not just the fragmentation and the polarization in our society. It's not just that we came up and invented technology that spreads algorithmic insanity and feeds us with our tools of mass distraction. It's not just those, it's what's happening on the inside, what we sense within in our souls. That something is wrong, the confusion we feel and sense. As my hero Leonard Cohen so perfectly described many, many years ago, he was quite prophetic about that. In his poem, The Future, where he said, "The blizzard of the world has crossed the threshold and it's overturned the order of the soul." I like it. This is very beautiful. And it really captures the whole thing that we are experiencing. When a system, when a world, when a culture, when it comes to a liminal point, when we approaching the threshold, this is also a moment where we are facing reality. So think about it. When a machine breaks down, this is probably the very first moment where we are forced to deal with the reality of the machine, of how it works. And this is happening always when systems are kind of touching those sensitive points where they are about to either implode or break down or transform. This is what one could call the real, the encounter with the real. It's like when a train is hitting us, this moment. Or when your wife is approaching you and said, "Oh, I got a fare and I'm gonna leave you." This is like this moment where we're losing control, where we cannot stop the truth from hurting us. And it happens. And it's like a painful truth right at this moment to see all those deep shadows in our societies arising. All those deep shadows we are too embarrassed to see in ourselves, our envy, our greed, our regrets, all those things, difficult things. And it's painful to see the truth of how disaligned we are when we think about what we think within, what we say to others, and what we actually do. There's a discord. It's so massive. Think about it. In the morning, we teach our kids the values of empathy, of listening, of fairness, right? That's what we do in the morning. And then we go out to work, and that's when we have fierce competition with all those other creative peers, all those others, and we compete over status, over funding, access to donors, intellectual property, right? Harsh competition. And then we come home again, and we teach our kids that it's important to be nice, to be gentle, to listen to the other. Don't you see how much we put a burden on our kids' lives with our own unlived life, our own unlived values? Don't you see it? This is like a thing that is well known in anthropology and in sociology, a phenomenon that's called like Memetic rivalry. It's as we compete with each other, we become more and more similar. This is like very important, become more and more similar because we copy each other, we get inspired from each other. And the more similar we are, the harsher, the bitter, the nastier the competition. Even our quest to save the world is stuck in mimetic rivalry. Think about it. Who is the better expert? Who gets more quotes on the last paper on climate change? And who's more creative? Who gives better, more inspiring TEDx talks? It's all like part of this mimetic game. But there's an inconvenient truth. There is like a very inconvenient truth for all of us. Because we propose solutions, right? We hear them here on stage. All of us propose solutions. But the thing is, they're at best, 5% solutions. Why? Because they're 5% solutions because we've entered this stage of liminality. We're in this zone in between where really nobody knows. Nobody knows what really we can do about climate change, etc., etc. So there's no fix that nobody knows it all, right? And there's a 5% solution because each of us here is forced in life, in business, to focus, to specialize, to select, to prune. So we're all like missing the big picture. Nobody has the big picture. That's why it's 5% solutions. And here's like something arising that's the big question that we've got to answer. So if it's just 5% solutions, how can we coordinate our 5% solutions? How can we multiply our 5 solutions instead of sabotaging each other in harsh competition? How can we do that? Because if we don't do it, we don't have there's no ways to address the wicked problems of this world with our 5% worldview. Look, I'm here not to moralize. I myself, I'm a network scientist and I run a strategy consultancy now for over 25 years. I want things work, and moralizing, I've learned, is not a really good approach. It's not effective. But what I've also learned in my profession is that the disturbing, complicated world that we see out there is not the product of like somebody sitting behind a screen and is designing everything that we see here. No, it's the product of emergence, which means it's the outcome of billions and billions of interactions on this world. And the outcome is beyond our noble intentions and our will. There is no possibility of direct control in a complex system. This is, by the way, what our fellow conspiracy theorists are missing. There is no direct control. But what's possible are like indirect avenues, indirect ways to influence the outcome of a complex system. And here's number one, what I've learned. If you want to change the behavior of a person or a system, you gotta work on the relationship first. So if you're a parent and you have a kid and you want the kid to behave differently, you have to work on the relationship with the kid first. And it's like in parenting, but it's everywhere. How do we treat each other? How do we engage? How are we listening? How we encourage each other? So when we have something ahead of us, and we want to do something together, the first thing that we have to take care of is not about our goals and where we want to go, but how we want to go, the style, the quality of how we are related. That's how you change a complex system, to changing the nature of the relationship between the elements. Number two, what I've learned. If you want to change a network or a complex system, you better assume that there is no clean, innocent human relationship. There's always the shadow sitting next to us, the shadow of our fear, of our greed, of our bitterness, of our envy, you call it, you name it. So it will always be there. And that's very important to understand, that we should anticipate that. There's nothing more depressing than seeing good people want to do good work with good intentions, and the collaborations ends up in bitterness and disappointment and infights because they thought we were so good we don't have a shadow, which is a narcissistic illusion. It's just wrong. So we have to take the shadow always into consideration. It should always be there. And here's a third thing that I've learned if you want to change a complex system. The weakest link in a network is not the relationship we have with the other. The quality of relationship we have with the other is determined and limited by the relationship we got with ourselves. So what we don't see in ourselves, we project on the others. All the complexities within we don't see, we project on others. What we can't tolerate within, we will not tolerate in others. It's a very simple law. It's called like the reflexive relationship in network science, the loops. They're always overlooked. They're so important. If you want to change a complex system, let leaders work on themselves. Know thyself. Know yourself. It's an old quote. That's the way to change. So, what do those three insights, how to change the complex system indirectly, could mean for our goal to restore our capacity to work together in a world of 5% solutions? So, how can we do that? So, what would be like the consequences of that? So, allow me to share here my own humble 5% solution, what I think should be done. Well, whatever we're going to do, whatever you do, whatever project, how important, how pressing, how complex it is, you always got to start. There's always a beginning of a project, right? And how to begin? What I propose is you got to begin creating a safe space. If you want to change the trajectory of this world, if you want to change the trajectory of your organization, if you want to change it fast, you got to start slow and deep. Deep means to invite the full reality to the table. And in order to invite the full reality to the table, we need a safe space for unsafe conversations. And here we go. We need the safe space for unsafe conversations first, because we got to reflect together. How can we overcome the destructive effects of memetic rivalry and how to overcome it without denying it. Because we don't want to be naive. So there is like it's so important to see that we have to discover alternative ways to be related with each other. Because if we don't do it at the beginning of the project, it will haunt us and sabotage us later. And for that, it's not of use to deny the existence of memetic rivalry. But where your leadership skills and your leadership responsible is needed is to provide this space, to host this space, to literally bring all those different capabilities and capacities to the table. Because this is not a utopian place, this safe space for unsafe conversations. It's not an Eden project. It's really about inviting all those negative capabilities like fear, greed, etc., to the table. It's in the room anyway, so let's give them a seat at the table. But not just them. Of course, also the positive capabilities, our joy, our tolerance for ambiguity, our courage, all those things. So this is a space inviting the whole spectrum of who we are. And I call it like a place of curious realism. Curious realism because we should be always open to surprise, be it negative or positive. The second factor, if we want to reorganize the way we are related, where your leadership is needed, is that this place got to be a place where we have to know and understand the maps of realities of each other. We have to work on our situational awareness. If we can't agree on where we are right now, how could we ever agree on goals? So how could we ever get there if we have no understanding of where we are starting from? So situational awareness is always first, strategy, tactics second. This is specifically true in a world of those dancing landscapes where we have constant change in the environment. We have to be able to see what's going on here right now. And by the way, there's good technology out there that's supporting us in strengthening shared situational awareness. We at FS Research work on that particularly. And here's the third thing where we need your leadership. We have to provide a space, host a space, where we have to figure out how to build on the power of our indirect reciprocity. What is indirect reciprocity? What do we mean by that? Indirect reciprocity means that I give away to somebody, but I don't expect something in return. I only expect that the one I'm giving passes on to someone else. This is like, we will not be able to transform the way we are related if we don't get out of this trap of our transactional deal mentality, all those zero-sum mentality that we are hostages of. If we learn to dare to trust that if we give something away, it will come back, but even not from the one I'm given to. That's the kind of culture that we need to encourage each other and strengthen each other. And you see here on this slide this circle where A is giving to B and B to C and C to A. And those are like those cores this is kind of like the heartbeat of a network that's working, are those kind of catalytic cycles based on indirect reciprocity. And we as leaders, we have to be responsible for providing a space for talking about that and experimenting with this approach. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all agree that we are right at this moment in a really wild storm, sinking all the ships of truth that we know. And therefore, it's real time to have the courage to see ourselves and each other with a realistic eye. And we need a place for that. We need places for that, many places for that. And those places gotta be slow and deep places. We need time. Because there is no shortcut. We cannot outrun our shadows. That's just not working. And those shadows eventually will sabotage us. I want to stop here and end here with a quote that I truly love, and obviously it's not. Can I? Here we go. That's the quote. Sorry. With the quote that I truly love, it's from James Baldwin, the poet, the writer, the activist, the civil rights movement's activist, who said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced." Well, I really think it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to face what is real. And therefore, it's time for an unsafe conversation we gotta lead. And it's time for all of us to join such a conversation. Thank you very much.